everyone, and welcome to another episode of Storytime. It's going to be a very narrator-heavy episode today, so go make yourself a cuppa and come back here and we will get through some stories. We last left off in Yosemite. I had shot the sunset, went back to camp, and got a very, very short night of sleep before I got up to shoot the sunrise. The day before, I had driven by this overlook, and I thought, okay, well, you know what? It'll be simple. I won't be doing any hiking, but I'll just get to this overlook and I'll find a composition and take a photo and it'll be great. So I got myself up to this peak and it was unbelievable. There was this cliff edge, as there tends to be in Yosemite, that allowed me this unique viewpoint going down through this valley and looking over into these mountains. This mountain, it looked like Half Dome. It wasn't Half Dome, but it resembled it. I was way on the other end of the park. I think, actually, I haven't double checked. I should really check to see if that was actually Half Dome. It was Half Dome. This mountain, it looked like Half Dome. It wasn't Half Dome, but it resembled it. But anyway, I digress. And so I shot the blue hour before sunrise, and I shot first light, and I shot the sunrise itself, and there's these amazing colors. There's a lot of smoke in the air at this point in time. There are these massive fires in California. And that's a story for another time. But with that amount of smoke, everything takes on this extra thick layer of atmosphere. And normally where you'd have colors in the clouds, here the color was everywhere. And so I got this one shot down the valley when everything had just gone golden and a little bit pink, and it was just incredible. After sunrise, I just took my time and meandered and drove back towards the campsite. And I saw this lake through the trees. So I pulled over and left all of my camera gear, left everything except for my phone. And I just wandered around and just really took in the sights of the morning. It was about, I think, 7 o'clock at this point. And there was nobody at this lake, and I just kind of walked along the lakeside and snapped pictures with my phone. And I really started to get the feeling of how to enjoy a trip like this. Up to this point, I had been rushing from destination to destination to destination, and this was my first moment of just kind of taking a breather and appreciating where I was, and it's something that sort of imprinted itself in my head at that point. And then I decided I was going to head out of Yosemite. So I was driving, and it's a beautiful drive, and as it would happen, there was a really nice and welcoming looking river just to the side of the road, so I stopped. And I was just kind of still feeling that mentality earlier from my time by the lake, and I decided I should just stop and take advantage of this river. I'd been hiking for days and I was disgusting. I thought I'd just have a little bit of a river bath. So I did, and the river was so nice. But I ended up spending probably close to an hour and, in and out of the river and sunbathing on the rocks and just really, really appreciating that time. And then I hopped back in the car and took off down the road. So then it was nighttime, and I was in a very small town called Lee Vining, which is the most British sounding American town I'd ever encountered. Lee Vining. I don't know. I mean, I like the name. I ended up deciding that I was just going to sleep in my car that night. And so I did, and slept not well because of street lights and the fact that I'm a 6.5 foot tall man sleeping in a Volkswagen Beetle. Bad combination. But I managed to get a couple hours of rest. So I got up and just started driving, and just before sunrise I realized the sky was turning some really great colors, and I pulled off on this road called Oil Plant Road, and there was just a little pull off with some really scenic views. Towards the east you actually caught this weird, really interesting looking sliver of Mono Lake, and to the west were the Sierra Nevadas. And I hung out there and just took in the morning. It was really cold. It was bitter cold. I got this really nice photo of the pre-sunrise over Mono Lake with these just very vibrant colors and these very bold forms. And then I spun around and took this panorama of the Sierra Nevadas, just catching the first of the morning light. So after shooting the sunrise, I headed roughly towards Death Valley. My journey south brought me to Lone Pine. On my way through Lone Pine, I just kept stopping. Because again, the smoke that we talked about earlier was creating this really thick atmosphere. And as well, there was some rain that had been rolling through, so there was a lot of lower clouds. But there were these breaks in the clouds, and the sun was just punching through. So you're getting these beautiful crepuscular rays, and every once in a great while, you'll take a photo and realize that it is the greatest photo that you've taken. You know, you find a photo that's, there's just something about it. It has a soul to it. I'm just going to show you the photos and let you experience it for yourself. At this point in time, I'd been shooting a lot, I'd been filming a lot, but I hadn't been near any power, and I had everything just on SD cards. So I thought, okay, I'll get a hostel, I'll plug in, do a media dump, and edit some photos, and just take it easy for a night. And I was just feeling really torn about my trip and what I was doing on this trip and what the intention was behind this trip. In hindsight, all these things always seem so much clearer. But at the time, I was really battling with myself with this idea of, well, I have to get to New Hampshire, I have to do this, I have to do that, even though I wasn't really feeling it. And I canceled my plans to go out east, and I canceled with everybody that was expecting me to be there, and I slept relatively well that night. The next morning, I was left with a conundrum. What I had been battling with was the idea of going to Death Valley. However, the temperatures that weekend were supposed to reach 120 degrees Fahrenheit, which is this much in Celsius. And I mean, the D800 isn't rated for nearly that much, and I don't feel humans are really good at existing at those temperatures. So I started heading south on 395 again to then connect and get to the coast. And then it happened. And I drove past the turnoff for Death Valley, and I saw the sign and immediately got a pit in my stomach. And things just felt wrong. I just kind of started to have a panic attack and a mental breakdown, and I just really feeling like I was doing the wrong thing. And I thought I just have to get to the coast. I just got to get to the ocean, and I can hang out on the beach and just like take a breather. And things went from bad to worse. My GPS, I had plotted out to get to the nearest beach, which happened to be the section of Pismo Beach where apparently you can drive on the sand, which I think is kind of environmentally a very irresponsible thing to do. And here I was sitting in traffic waiting to pay to get to a stretch of sand with hordes of people, which is exactly the opposite thing that I wanted. And so I spun around and just tried to find the first parking lot I could to pull over and get my bearings and have a quick bite of food, because at this point in time I hadn't eaten in I think 5 hours. And I was quite hungry and just feeling like I had made the worst decision that I could have. Why did I do this? This is a mistake. A large part of me wants to retreat right now. Is this a challenge? To try to find myself here amongst the noise and the congestion. So the question is, do I go back tonight? I suppose I should at least go see the ocean. Very luckily for me, my friend was pretty nearby, and she said, "Okay, where are you? I'm gonna come find you, and we're gonna talk and figure things out." And so we went and got some supplies for a sort of picnic of sorts, and went to a more out of the way and quiet stretch of beach, which was really nice. I made camp that night, she went back home, and we decided that we were going to converge the next day and go camping together. And we ended up at this lake, Lake Lopez, and befriended some squirrels and had a picnic and just hung out by the lake and chatted. And at this point I was really, really coming back down from my bad moment the day before. I woke up the next morning to try to shoot the sunrise, but everything was fogged in and I couldn't really find any decent subjects, so I just kind of went for a walk. And by the time I got back to camp, there were some deer that decided they wanted to hang out and thought that our tents and our bags and things were interesting. And so for the first time in my life, I got to pet a deer. And so that stretch, it ended up really nice, actually. And I was really thankful for that time, hanging out with my friend and seeing some more of the more natural ends of Southern California. And so I left the coast and headed back east. through a lovely canyon drive and making a beeline for Death Valley. But that is a story for another day. Thanks for watching. Did you finish your tea? It's just unreal out here. This is how dumb people die.